Hey everybody, I have really good news about baseball. I didn't realize that I could get basically all the information that we need to even start doing projections for spring training games. To kind of get this thing rolling. So I spent the last hour updating stats, and I'm going to go through the process of what this MLB algorithm needs in terms of stats and updating to get it to work properly. And we're going to get, we're not going to get through all of it and get it totally functional today because as you're going to see, we're going to need more stats to start to accrue even in the spring training just to see which players are on which teams because it gets really complicated. But basically, I'm putting this file out there. It's $100. You can watch the series as I do videos on this up through the beginning of the season. I'm definitely not doing this every day throughout the year. It's way too much, and you'll see it takes a lot of updating, but you can. And you can also get a 2023 version started that I'm starting right now, so that you can have it easier. And I can explain to you what you need to do because there's certain things you'll want to do with pitching stats when people get traded, when batter stats, when people have played on multiple teams last year. We're going to talk about how we deal with that. There's a lot I want to talk about in this file, but basically, let's see, can we get a projection? Like, what do we need to do? So right now, we have like the end all be all sheet here that you really want to look at for the day is this matchup sheet. This matchup sheet is it's a connection between this and a bunch of other compiling sheets, but this is like the final one. So when this one works, you know that you're pretty good throughout the rest of the file. And it's not working right now. We don't have a margin, we don't have a pick rank, we don't have a projected score. And the reason why is because there's some breaks in information here. So this sheet, you can create new records in this sheet by grabbing two at a time and pulling them down, and that will properly create new records, okay? In case you need more games. We do have, how many games do we have in here? We have all the way down to the Reds, apparently. So these are the games for tomorrow being Friday, okay? So these are Friday's games. So when you go to your matchup sheet, we want to have all the games actually. I'm surprised I didn't have them all in there. It's because I was doing work on the day before. Let's see how far this goes. It goes until the names don't appear anymore, and then you get rid of everything else. So is there a double header? There's two. Yeah, there's a team is playing two different games. For us, you can see how this is a disaster in spring training. But I want to show you in theory how you update this and how you fix problems. Okay. So, because I think we might even get a score up here. We'll find out. All right, so let's check, because I think the scores are related to, you have to have no errors in the entire sheet to get the scores to work right. And we have errors in all of these places. Why do we have an error here? Okay. And by the way, these are not the correct pitchers for tomorrow. Some of them are not named. Only the ones that are not yellow are correct. So Verlander actually is supposedly going tomorrow on Friday. Well, he's either on the Mets or not on the Mets. I don't know. Let's look him up. So we're gonna look him up on RotoWire. He is on the Mets. So the problem is that his historical stats from the pitcher stats here, you find his name on here, they are all Houston. And so we need to change that to NYM for Mets. And we also need to go into the matrix and find him. I think maybe not. Actually, with pitchers, you don't, because pitchers don't need to be in the matrix. They just need to be on the pitcher sheet. But now let's see if that worked. Now all of a sudden, there's no error next to his name. It has his full 2022 season stats in here. Okay, great. Next, Jordan Lyles. Who does he play for? He plays for Kansas City. I think all these teams are going to be right here. So we just have to adjust them in the pitcher sheet. Okay. So this happens anytime there's a trade. You've got to make sure that because we're looking at last year's stats, we're pretending like Jordan Lyles was on Kansas City last year to get the algorithm to grab his stats correctly. Okay. Connor Siebold is probably on Colorado because that's usually what this is meaning right now. So let's change him. Colorado. And the last one is Brandon. Whoa, that's a weird name. Fat Fat with a PF, not a PH. He might be a new pitcher with that name. Let's find out. Yeah, he doesn't exist. So we're just going to flat out give him somebody on Arizona. We don't want to do that. We'll do that by somebody who has very, very low starts. We'll grab an Arizona pitcher. No, we don't want to do that either. It's a disaster right now, as you can see. Really what we want to do, honestly, this is what you're supposed to do. So you're supposed to go to this guy. This is what I do when it's a real day, and this is why this file takes so long, is we go and we grab these stats from last year, which was probably, oh, he played for Baltimore. He did play. Oh, we're doing Lyles, darn it. PFAA, this guy. This guy's got probably AAA stats. Yeah, exactly. He's got AAA stats. So we would type these in here in the picture sheet. We would add them at the bottom, and we would do that. I'm not going to do that because I just don't want to waste the time, and I know it doesn't really matter for this video. So to quickly kind of override something, like I said, we're going to grab a pitcher that has almost no starts with hardly any stats. We'll go with Yankee Abreu. And we'll call him Arizona. And that will fix that problem. It does. Okay, guess what? We have projections, even though we have no lineup factor. So this is another thing. And we have no money line. This is all apparently based off team stats and stuff, because we don't have a lineup. Once we get a lineup in here, it's going to change the margins a lot, because the lineup factor affects that. 43% of the calculation of the weights of the variables are related to lineup factor. So why is our lineup factor not work? Well, our lineup factor doesn't work because the names of these pitchers are not the correct names on the list, because we don't have tomorrow's stats. So that's just not going to work yet. But basically, that's involved with the lineup sheet here. And we have a ton of work to do in here, and it's just going to be an intensely long video if I go through everything. So what I want to basically say is that I will chug away at doing all this and then showing you an example of one adjustment that's made, because I'm going to leave you with all the sheets and basically how long this takes you every day. Injury report, not needed. Actually, don't use it in this file. We don't even need it because we use lineups. We use actual lineups. And the way that we get the lineups is something that you do all the time. I'm actually going to move it all the way to the front. I'm going to move the lineup and the matrix all the way to the front of this file, because the lineup file is where you spend a tremendous amount of time. Once you've done everything else for the day, you still have to get confirmed lineups in here. All right. We sort them out by team and by pitcher name. They're right here. Now, when you get rid of this, all the lineups disappear. This is a pivot table. So you refresh this, and all of a sudden, all the lineups are gone. So where do you get them? You get them on RotoWire, Fantasy Sports, MLB, lineups, daily lineups. And this is today's. And I know we're looking at tomorrow, which is one of the reasons this isn't working, but tomorrow's not ready yet. If you click tomorrow, it's not ready yet. So you Control A, Control C to copy it, and then you paste as match as destination formatting. And then when you refresh this pivot table after you've pasted that, you get all the lineups in order, and you get all the people that you need to add to your list and get their names right in the matrix. And that'll be another video because it's very tedious. But basically, the reason why our lineups are all screwed up is because whoever Hamilton is either doesn't play for Boston or plays for Boston now, but didn't play last year. Let's see who that is. I'll show you what that looks like. D. Hamilton is David Hamilton. Do we have a David Hamilton in our players stat sheet, in our batter stat sheet? Let's see. We do not. So that is a brand new player, which means that player is not going to be in the matrix. Oops. David Hamilton is not in the matrix anywhere, it looks like, right? So that means what you have to do with that player is you have to put his name, David Hamilton, as it appears in RotoWire, his team being Boston, and he has an abbreviation that comes out. It's called D. Hamilton. And you put that abbreviation in the matrix in this column, column G, and now you have a complete record for D. Hamilton, and he won't have any stats yet. As you can see, his number is 0 for contribution percentage, but that's because he didn't have any stats in 2022. And so that's one of those things where he's going to show up as a 0 until he makes the majors and plays a real game, which is why it makes it really difficult to predict spring training, because you have no idea how these AAA guys are going to play other than importing their AAA stats into the batter sheet. And I am absolutely not doing that. I mean, you could grab it, AA stats or whatever, but I mean, let's just get real. Like at a certain point, you just don't want to do it. We'll work on this. So that's how you eventually, and I will eventually go through every player to at least get them all in the matrix. We have to have a record of them. We have to have a team for them. We have to have that correct. And so once all those things are correct, then we'll be able to get actual numbers that will go here in the lineup factor amount. Because right now, this is where you get it from, and it's a complete disaster. It's all errors because we don't have anybody on the right team, and so stuff is breaking all over the place. And the pitchers are all wrong. So I'll have to be back tomorrow to explain, when we get the current lineups for tomorrow and the right pitchers, how this will work better. And I will fix all the names. I will go through all the batters and consolidate their stats onto one current team for the year so that their contribution scores are accurate. That's why why do we have an error here? Can't have that. Why we got an error? Oh, is it? Why do we have an error here? That's a problem. I gotta fix that. Is it because we put a blank in here? It can't be. I gotta figure out why I've gotten an error. I've got something probably dividing by 0 somewhere. But there should be a contribution score here, and there was when I was doing this earlier. So what did I do? Oh, what did I do? Let's just find it. Oh, is it this down here? No, that's somebody who's actually playing. Wait a minute. Max. All right, we're gonna figure out why we have an error here, because you might have this problem and you'd have to fix it. So, no, that ain't it. So we're using I at 0. It's going to be where one of the maxes in one of the columns is 0, I guess. That's usually what causes an error. Now, I just brought in the full stats for 2022. There shouldn't be any problems. So what you can do actually in here, let me show you how you trace through an error. That's really what we need to do. Is we're going to evaluate this cell. And we're going to do error checking. And we're going to, so what's going to happen is it's going to start going through these processes until it finds the error, and that's going to find the column where the error is. So trace error. Okay, it actually points, oh, that's right there. Oh, it's because of this. Duh. Okay, so here's what happened. So anytime we don't have correct numbers in here, I didn't even see it with my eyes. Remove formulas. You can get these arrows off of here, but that was a pretty obvious one. I'll show you what happened. So what I was doing, and I'll explain why that's there. How do I remove arrows? There we go. So what happened was I was writing a formula that calculates the average of things, and what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to take these number of at-bats divided by these number of at-bats is what that is supposed to do. Average divided by, so actually, let me just rewrite the formula completely and show you how it works. So basically what you're trying to do is some stats you're adding together. There's two different sets of season stats for Andrew Benintendi, okay? Played for Kansas City and he played for the Yankees. So when it comes to his runs and his hits and his doubles, you can just add the two together, which is what we're doing in this consolidated Andrew Benintendi record. But with average, you actually have to do a weighted average, all right? And so the weighted average is a different formula, which is it's the number of at-bats that he had on one team being here, J4, divided by the total at-bats that he had for both teams, which is this J6. And then he has to multiple, you have to multiply it by X4. Same thing is going to go on. X4 is the current average that he had for the first team, which is Kansas City. Then the next formula is this, divide the number of at-bats he had for the Yankees divided by his total at-bats for the season times his average for the Yankees. That's how you do that. And that's how that works. And if you put dollar signs on the J's, okay, you put dollar signs on the J's right here, then what happens is you can start to pull that formula over and that part of it will not move. And you can do the on-base percentage and the slugging and it works. And that's how you do that. So that's why we got an error. And this formula is what I then have to copy and apply to every single player that had trades. And some of them were traded on 2 or even 3 teams. So that is work I need to do to get all the players accurate. But you can see we don't have errors anymore. We actually have Andrew Benintendi, who should be a 45% player, not a 38 plus a 24% player, which would be 62. His rating should actually be 45. So we're going to get rid of these duplicate records, and he now plays on the White Sox apparently also. So he doesn't even play on either of these teams. So what ends up happening is, I want to copy some of these formulas, but I also don't, which is I want to take these formulas, I'm going to then apply them to a different area. Then we can turn all these things into values because we don't care about them being formulas anymore. And Andrew Benintendi's name goes here, and then we just delete the other Andrew Benintendi records. So this is just for 2022. And so now we have one Benintendi who plays for the White Sox, and he's got the proper rating. So I'm going to clear out all these duplicate players, which there are many. As you can see, they go all the way down to here. That's going to be something I'm going to work on. That's the annoying part of setting this up, but it's appropriate, and it's going to be really helpful in the first month of the season when we have correct full season stats properly weighted. So that's what I'm doing with batters. You have to do the same thing with pitchers, where you have to average out their ERA in certain areas. So that's a whole other area that we have to do. And I will work on that later. So anyway, yeah, there's a lot going on, but as you can see, this thing is about ready to get sold because the next few videos I'll go really like going in depth with exactly all the little minutia changes that you need to make every day. I will show that for a few days. I can get that done right up here before we start the season so that we at least have a proper roster set up, because that's what I found is the most difficult, is getting the rosters accurate, especially as people are coming in and out in spring training. You don't know if those players are going to be starting, but we'll have an idea because we'll have seen their name appear previously by us by setting up every day. So lot going on here. I will be back on Friday. Yes, I will be back tomorrow when the lineups are finalized for these spring training games tomorrow. I'm going to give you predictions from the algorithm on those games, even though they're going to be very spotty because of all the new players that are going to be playing. We'll at least be able to get a breakdown of who those new players are. And it'll be pretty cool because I do think it'll make predictions even in spring training tomorrow. I don't know what kind of value they're going to have, obviously, because it's spring training, but I'm interested to see what happens. So when we dig through the lineups here, you'll see that for tomorrow, they will update this eventually and probably overnight. And when it gets in there, we'll have predictions for every game. So I'll do a video. So yeah, you can go buy a copy for $100 and start updating it yourself with a RotoWire subscription and really get into it. I shouldn't knock it. It can be a lot of fun for, it is a really nice toy, especially, but it should be responsible for delivering it accurately every day to everyone. Just becomes a very stressful exercise that has not been financially rewarding for me enough. So I would rather just get a copy out to you all, and then I will answer questions back and forth a little bit about it. But Carlos will be the one who does it every day, who actually puts in the effort and sends out this rendering of the matchup sheet according to all his work. Because you can see there's so much work that can be done that's not even necessary. Like some people don't even do anything. Some people just use the player stats from one team last year. Like there's a whole lot of ways you can mess with this. And then there's also the distributions. There's also the distributions of how we value batters and stuff like this. Like this is pretty uniform. There's not the same for pitchers, but then there's the distributions here on the matchup sheet. This is also totally variable. I didn't talk about that. Like if you want to make lineup factor 0 because we don't have any lineup factor, all of a sudden you can't make it 0. You got to make it at least 1. That's right. You can't make anything 0 up here, but you can make it 0.001 or whatever. And we want to care a lot about the pitcher win percentage or something. Watch all the scores change. All the margins are going to change. Like this thing's totally dynamic. And this is another thing you really want to test with a macro where we put a bunch of different distributions in here and see which ones work the best. They fluctuate because of how far we are through the season, which is why it's really important to use last year's stats at the beginning because you have a much broader sense of what's happening. But after like 3 weeks or so, I like using current season stats and just weighting it heavily on ERA and weighting it. Yeah. All right. I think it's raining. I think my car window is open. It's a message I just got. So I got to run. All right, guys. Baseball will be coming, as you can see. Take it easy. May all your picks be winning.